Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a good lunch break and you're full of energy for our discussion this afternoon. So, welcome to our post-lunch panel discussion on supporting our staff. My name is Johanna Bogle. I'm the Deputy Chief Financial Officer at Great Western Hospitals in Swindon, and I'm also the National SRO for the Health and Wellbeing Network. This session is designed to be interactive, so just a reminder to use the Slido if you're watching online, and if you're here, there's a roving mic for those of you that are in the room in Birmingham. We're going to start with a short presentation on the first One NHS Finance conversation and what we've done since as a result, and then we'll go on to the discussion questions. If I can just introduce our panel. So we've got Suzanne Robinson, Executive Director of Finance and IM&T at Greater Manchester Mental Health Trust, Hardev Virdee, Group Chief Financial Officer at Barts, and Simon Worthington, Director of Finance at Leeds Teaching Hospitals. So if I can hand over to the panel to do the presentation, and then we'll go on to our discussion.
Okay, I think it's me first. Wonderful. Hello, everybody. Great to see you all. Thanks for coming. It's a really exciting event. This morning's sessions were wonderful, so we're hoping to keep up the, keep the trend going. We're on for an hour though, so you're going to have to help us. And it's really exciting as well. Do go on the new engagement app. If you go on the One NHS Finance website, it sort of comes up straight away. Do get on there. Do encourage your staff to get on. Really wanted to just think a little bit about what staff and colleagues said last time, a few years ago, and what we've done. And I suppose as will come out, hopefully, that with everybody's help, because it's not just a few people doing this, it's the whole network doing it. We have done together a huge amount. So thanks for that. And I'm just going to zero in on a couple of topics and around supporting our staff, which, as a leader, there are lots of important things we've got to do, but for me, that's the most important, because it's through our staff that we and our colleagues that we deliver, isn't it? And we have, was it Pete who put the slide up with the staff survey results on? There's really clear evidence that if you are doing, the right thing, which we measure in this context by, the accreditation for One NHS Finance, your staff survey results are better. Okay, so your staff are feeling more supported. The idea it's a good place to work, they're better. And we know also from that if you've got a highly engaged team and people are feeling happy and motivated, they do more great work. Okay, so wonderful way to help patients, isn't it, is to support your staff. And it came out in the conversation. There was, I think it was, how many people? It was nearly 4,000 people engaged in that last conversation out of the 16,000 that we've got in the finance function in the NHS. And a clear thing that came out was about developing supportive culture in organisations was essential for staff wellbeing and resilience. So that's what colleagues said. So what have we done? So we've got the Health and Wellbeing Champions Network, which is wonderful. I'm going to have to look at my notes here. But we've got 158 organisations now have at least one health and wellbeing champion. So there's more to do there. I know some organisations have got several. But, if you've not got one in your organisation, please do try and encourage colleagues to do that. We've had loads of health and wellbeing webinars. We've got an annual wellbeing conference. Really important, we come on to supporting staff through change, but we issued a supporting your staff resource pack. And that was a really interesting process because we're looking at what resources have we got around this. How do you work to engage your staff, your team and things like that. And there was already loads of resources. So, I really encourage, go on the website for One NHS Finance, or, just go on it once a week and just have a look what's there. There's absolutely loads of stuff. You're struggling with a particular issue, there will be something on there that can help you. There's the Value Maker Network, there's something there that can help you. Yeah, so please do that. Please do that, and please encourage your staff to do it. So we did those engagement packs, and there's been loads of social events as well. Another thing that colleagues said was We need to support staff through the inevitable organisational changes and restructures. Okay. I remember when we did the first One NHS Finance conversation, we were just there was a big reorganisation going on in the NHS around setting up the sort of ICSs and things. And now we're going through the big changes in NHS England, further changes in the ICS within providers. There's all sorts of things happening. So absolutely essential that we support our staff through that. And there's some great resources there. So the Hybrid Working Support Guide, supporting staff through change programme for the ICBs, mock interviews. So I had a lady I'm sponsoring recently did a mock interview, and a colleague, value maker, reached out to do that for her, and she's found it really useful and has got more great confidence from that. So these are really practical things that we can do. Change management webinars we've laid on, and myth-busting interviews and advice for those who've moved different parts of the NHS. So I moved into the ambulance service some years ago, and a guy I really respected said to me, "Don't do that, Simon." I said, "Why not?" And he said, "You'll never come back." This sort of, "Oh, that's, don't do that." These are all really valuable jobs that people do. So we shouldn't have this sort of, "Oh, that's better than this" feeling. And there's lots of myths about if you worked in the, mental health sector, can you do it in the acute sector and this type of thing? It's all nonsense. So we've been doing various things to try and combat that as well. So there's just a few examples. These things work, if people get behind them, and your role as leader, really encourage. We had the innovation thing earlier. Don't want to steal anybody's thunder on that, but if you just encourage your teams when they've done something good, just say to them, "Oh, do you know there's the innovation thing in One NHS Finance? Well, just spend an hour, write it up, send it in, see what happens." And all of a sudden, their innovation is published, and people are contacting them on the Teams channel. "Can you help me with this?" And they're feeling empowered, and they feel like they've done something really good. Yeah. So just encourage you as leaders to all the time be motivating your staff in that way. Okay. So I'll keep going for the rest of the hour, shall I hand over? Yeah. All right. So there you go. So who's next?
Me.
Yeah. So thank you very much for that, Simon. So I'm going to assume that everything that I'm going to talk to you about today, you already know about, because you are a group of engaged people. You all know about ONF. You're here for a purpose. You're here for a reason. However, there's probably some things on here that you might not know about. So I'm going to be utterly shameless and blatantly promote everything that we do. And when I say we do, I do often refer to the ONF team, because it's they that do so much of it. So to repeat what Julian said earlier, the team behind the whole of this event, a lot of the resources, a lot of the work that we do are amazing. And if you haven't taken advantage of this stuff, or you haven't promoted it within your teams, then please do. So following on from what Simon's already told about around supporting staff, I think this was probably the biggest theme that came from the conversation 2 years ago. So we had about 4,000 people, about 10,000 different engagements. And the most common thing was about the culture. So people wanted to feel appreciated. People wanted to work in a place that was a great place to work. And when you drill down into what that really meant and unpack some of the things and the comments that came through, it was about people feeling supported, people being kind to one another, people being compassionate, people being helpful. If you've had a really bad day, if you've had a total shocker and it's not going well, just somebody taking the time to come and say thank you, to show some appreciation, it can be that one thing actually that makes that person want to come back the next day and keep going. So I don't think we can underestimate the benefits of us all taking the time to do that. So some of the things that we've really done to try and help with that and promote that, the Say a Thank You campaign is probably a really good example of that. We launched it about 18 months ago, was it? You launched it, didn't you, Simon? And again, resources are all on the website. There's a lovely little card that you can print off. You can say who you want to thank, and you can share it with people. So I imagine all of us have probably thanked all of our teams, haven't we, recently? So the heroic efforts with everybody doing their annual accounts. A group thanks is brilliant, but what is more meaningful is a personal thank you. A little note to somebody, going to spend some time, appearing at the desk and saying, thank you for the effort you've done.
that's the sort of thing that staff most value. So I would encourage you all, if you don't already, I'm sure you do, to go and to find that special person to go and say thank you to. We've had a great response from this. We have Thank You Thursdays, don't we, where people will share those thanks but promote them across the whole of the finance community. So it really gets everybody to take an opportunity to say thank you to those people too. One of the other things that we've been doing, again, I think it was about 12 months, maybe a little bit longer now, we set up a staff survey working group. So again, going back to those staff survey results, which are really, really powerful and a really important tool for us. So the engagements that we got from the original big conversation were fabulous, but we wanted almost a barometer. So when we put these resources in place, how do we know that they're making the impact that we want? And the staff survey is a great place for us to help measure some of that. I think we've got about 170 organisations that do have staff survey results at that granular level, so we can extract finance. And we've been using that data to do a number of things. We've created a really, we've created a really cool tool that will enable organisations to look at where you benchmark with your peers. So you can see who's doing really well around staff survey results and engagement, who can I go and learn from, who's improved the most, because we have had some organisations that have come and spoken to us and said, we don't know where to start. It's, it's really quite daunting, and what sort of steps should we put in place, and how can we get more engaged with our teams? We can learn from those people that improve quickly, and some of these other mechanisms have been really, really helpful in doing so. And I guess that leads us quite nicely onto the accreditation programme, because you're right, you would expect it to be the case, but the evidence proves it, doesn't it? That where we've got organisations that are accredited at level 3, they have more positive staff survey results. So it does work. The engagement is stronger when we see that move through those different levels of. So I think we had another 35 organisations that were accredited at FLC back in May. I think Pete was saying earlier, 70% of organisations now have accreditation. We've got a few ICSs that everybody's accredited, and it's brilliant. It's really great to start seeing the results of that framework. We're actually refreshing it at the moment and making sure all of the standards reflect the changing environment around us, and making sure that they're still really helping teams to make a positive impact around some of this work around great place to work and culture. I'm going to do a plea actually now, because one of the challenges that we do have is around assessors. So what's most frustrating is if you've got a team who are really passionate and think, get on the journey of doing accreditation, and we struggle to find an assessor to help them do that. All the effort that goes in, and it genuinely is a team effort when we do accreditation. If we don't have the assessors to do those assessments, then that just stalls things for us. So a plea for people out there, if you would want to get involved, then please do speak to any of the ONF team, any of us, about doing that. I've been an assessor for 12 years now, and it's the amount of plagiarism that I have shamelessly done. I've been into so many organisations and taken all of their ideas. I think my team sort of a fear of dread when I say I'm going to do one, because of what I'm going to bring back or what I'm going to say. Why don't we do this? Wouldn't this be great? But there is really lots of things for it personally, as well as obviously supporting the network with the accreditation. All of this is around celebrating success, and today's another example of doing that. So one of the other things that came out from the big conversation is people said we need to find that way to share innovative ideas across the system and make sure we learn from each other. What great examples we've had of that today. And we've all been our minds have been blown by Ed today and Barts, and we all want Barts and Ed to go into our trust to do all of that for us. But it's just a perfect example of the good stuff that's out there, that's grown organically from within organisations, and is finding those opportunities to share it across us and learn. And I think we've got a 24-hour challenge we've all got to do as well about how we're going to learn from each other, haven't we? And I would say this, because obviously being associated with the Value Maker Network, the best way to do that is through the network. We're super proud of the network. We've grown it significantly over the last few years. I think we've got, and somebody will shout at me if not, I think we've got about 3,448 members of the network at the last count, and we're going to keep growing it and growing it. So there's some of us in the room that were part of the original Value Makers, and it's great to see them here today. But that network is powerful in sharing best practice. A lot of what we do, we rely on the Value Maker regional leads and the Value Makers out there in all of your organisations and across the country. So to building on that, the showcase sessions, I hope you know what they are. If you don't, please go and have a look at them. They're all on the website. We've done all sorts of sessions similar to what Simon was referring to. So we've done ones on introductions to ICSs. We've done sessions on how do you make sense of where HFMA, FSD and ONF all fits together and what does that look like. We've got one coming up in September time, which is about how do you engage with schools out there in your communities to encourage people to come and work in NHS Finance, and you're going to talk a lot about that, I'm sure, Hardev, in a second. So they're great sessions, promote them to your staff. If you don't get there, they're all recorded so you can use them for lunchtime learning sessions. They're really, really accessible, and there's some great stuff in there. And I'm sure we're going to make Ed do one later, so we can share that across the whole network. The Teams network, this has just grown massive legs. I mean, I'm actually in the Teams network, so you know when you get messages, it buzzes, doesn't it, like all day. There's about 4,500 people in this network at the moment, but it's great when it flashes up and people reaching out and saying, I've got a piece of work I need to do, can you help me with this? And somebody will pop back up and say, I've got a version of that. It's wonderful, and our teams are using it really, really actively and really well. And again, you know, point your staff in that direction because they help each other, they share things, and it's just a fabulous way to do it quickly as well. And then again, last thing from me before I hand over, I have to promote VMAC. So those of you who don't know what VMAC is, it's our Value Makers annual conference. 24th of November, if people would like the date for their diaries, but this is a brilliant opportunity for us to celebrate the Value Maker network. If you don't know what a Value Maker is, or you're confused about what that might mean, go to the Value Maker annual conference and you'll just see it for itself. It's led by the Value Makers, it's fronted by Value Makers, it's ideas and best practice from our Value Makers, and we always finish that conference with celebrating with our award ceremony, where we take opportunity to thank individuals and teams for their efforts, and there's those special people that are genuinely out there that help with this work. So it's a wonderful event and brings together a lot of what we're going to talk about today. And there's some evidence. I'm not making it up. That's what these things look like. It's all on the website, and they're really good, resourceful things to download.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Susanna. So I'm Hardev. I get the privilege of being the chair of the NHS Finance Academy as part of One NHS Finance. And it's great to see everyone here, and it's a real privilege to be here on the pyramid stage at Financebury Festival. It's something that I've always dreamed about. So I just want to talk about the people aspect. And if you go back to the original conversation we had with all those thousands of people that Simon was referring to earlier, over 50% of people wanted to talk about our people. Okay, so that was the big common theme. And it made me think about actually how much time as a percentage do I spend talking about our people during the day with my teams. And it kind of shifted the balance of how we approach this. And I think those of you, and I can see there's quite a few of you who've got distant memories of life in the NHS, will recall that the people conversation was never a priority or a high priority. And actually, what we've seen more often now is people like ourselves owning some of the issues that we have to deal with. And this is a key point about One NHS Finance. It's developed by us as finance leaders, creating a finance community. We are not outsourcing the issues, we're dealing with them with ourselves. So it's really important to remember that only these issues can be resolved by us as a finance community. And we are all the leaders of that community. So we need to make sure when it comes to our people, we understand how much of a priority that is for everyone. So again, the same theme, what we heard was people talking about the structure to development. And again, those of you who remember a few years ago, every time you wanted to go and develop, it was a bit of a scattergun approach. And it was whoever emailed you at the latest and was at the top of the email inbox, oh yeah, here's a good course to do that, that'll help you. And you never heard anything about that again. But if you go onto the One NHS Finance website, if you go through Finance Academy, you can see structured programs from Band 2 all the way up to CFO and beyond, and also what you're aiming to achieve at each of those levels. We have a curriculum that sits behind that as well, so people can understand what it is they're aiming for. So that is a real big progress for us. And actually those individual programs for each banding, as Peter mentioned at the start, they are oversubscribed, but we do actually put on additional sessions and we expand those to cater for that. So please do encourage your staff to sign up. So there is a way that of navigating yourself through the NHS Finance career. We also heard about diversity and the fact that people were really keen to see fair and consistent training and development. And this was a big issue again about fairness. And this wasn't so much about the positive discrimination, this was just about fairness and what does equity really mean for us in NHS Finance. And what we've seen is within those programs that we've developed, there is actually more diversity than we've had before. And those are really taking shape. The one question I get asked the most is, how do you reach those organisations who previously have not been engaged? Okay, and how do we make sure that their staff get the benefit that everyone is aiming to achieve as well? So what we have now is we do have data on each of these programs broken down by all the characteristics, but also by organisation and who's sending who to which course, etc. So we can now target those areas at an ICB or regional level to say, is there support that's needed to encourage such and such organisation to help their finance staff develop? So we've got that information. We are using that information. We are now reaching all of the areas within the NHS finance community. And something you'll hear from Andrea McGee tomorrow around talent management is it's really important for us not to leave anyone behind. And this is about actually ensuring as a finance community we keep moving ourselves forward. So we've got a really strong sponsorship program. We've got over 500 sponsors and sponsees. Again, that helps open the door. It helps support people in what can be sometimes a very complex field, quite a difficult area for people to navigate of how you make your next opportunity, how you make your right connections, what does it mean to network, how do you do that, is it really all about showing your face in the right space, what does that all mean? So that's really important for us to develop sponsorship programs. And for those of you out there who are leaders and who are not sponsors, please become a sponsor. I was going to say see me at the end, but that's too school-like. But please do become a sponsor. The One NHS Finance team are keen to hear from you. And your deputies as well. They are very crucial in helping support people as well. And we've got a whole cohort of people waiting to be sponsees and looking for sponsors. So please do come forward for that program as well. And you'll hear tomorrow as well about the work of the IM&T Ambassador program as well. So some great work being done by Yarlini in particular about creating a more diverse and inclusive finance community. I would say that, to the next slide, thank you. On the work that we've been doing in One NHS Finance, it feels a bit like our success is sort of filtering out there beyond finance. And we are getting quite a lot of interest from other professions and other people in the NHS and between these four walls. I was asked a bit about by someone called Amanda Pritchard the other day about you and finance. You seem to have organised yourselves pretty well on your development side, which I thought was great credit to the finance community, but it also shows that we are doing something right. And we have got other professions looking at us and wanting to know how we're doing this. But it has taken us time to get here, and we've got more to do. And one area that we're really keen to explore with yourselves is around recruitment and retention. So we have produced lots of information around parental leave and flexible working, and also professional qualifications, how to fast track. But we're also taking really pride in actually opening our doors to be much more inclusive. So we've got the Insight program, which is about bringing in people from socially deprived backgrounds, getting them into a finance career and supporting their development, working with a charity and providing them with the opportunities for apprenticeships and further. But the other part of recruitment I'd be keen to get your thoughts and input on is how far do we go on recruitment? And you'll notice when we go through to the sponsors that we have a number of recruitment agency firms, and they'll all be pinging you emails today and tomorrow about, oh, we saw you at the conference and can we have a chat? And some of us may be in our positions because we had that tap on the shoulder from a recruitment agency firm. Is that the right approach going forward? Do we want to be more in control, as it were, of how we do, particularly the most senior recruitment, and how that filters through and filters up at board level as well? So I'd be keen to get your input on that. And that's something One NHS Finance and the Finance Academy are working on at the moment. And then finally, leadership development. We've got great success on our National Finance Talent Pool, and a big thank you to all of you who've been involved in that process. The people who are on that talent pool have quoted that it's been the most difficult process they've ever undertaken. It's very rigorous. It's supported by all of you as CFOs, helping to seek out talent and get really strong cohorts. What we have got is, again, really good diversity. We've got good range from each of the regions, but also what we have got is a really strong pipeline, and that's really important. So we now have got stronger people coming through to take these roles, which can be challenging. And then when they are in post, we do have the First in Post CFO program, which is about, again, buddying them, supporting them in the first CFO role, which, as you all will know as well, can be difficult at times. So there is a support network we're building around bringing that pipeline and supporting colleagues as they take up that senior role. And we've got an accelerated deputies program, which is where people probably are not quite there at the talent pool level, but need a bit more support to get them there, about how do we help them on that. And then there's this is our first leadership summit. Really keen to get your views and thoughts about what you think and how it works for you. But this is a big step for us to actually take ownership of our agenda, how we make sure people like Julian are really supporting One NHS Finance, which he absolutely is. But this is about us as a leadership community, supporting our people, supporting One NHS Finance. And finally, I just want to echo Suzanne's comment about the colleagues in One NHS Finance who have made this what it is at the moment. This is absolutely a turnaround from where we were 3 years ago. More work to be done. Very keen to hear your thoughts about what more could be done, and hence why this next conversation is going to be really important. Thank you very much for that, Johanna.
Thank you. So while I would just wait for some questions to come through, I just wanted to reflect from somebody who knew everything that was happening, to actually see that on the screen just reminds us how far we've come in a few years, from that one conversation to being now about to launch our second conversation to make the next big step. And just also a reflection on how privileged I think we are as a finance community, that there's all this stuff going on pretty much in one place that's really helping to develop, retain and recruit the absolute cream of the crop for finance staff. So a big thank you to all of you who've led those work streams as well. Any questions from the room? If I just go online while the mic's coming. Simon, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that finance leaders are currently facing in supporting and developing their staff?
Okay. Right, so it's a bit hard at the minute, isn't it? You know, as anybody, Julian did that really good speech at the beginning of sort of duty of optimism stuff. And yeah, we are doing better than we were doing, but it's really, really difficult, isn't it? And I think for people like, you know, in senior positions, you know, you're under lots of pressure. You've got to get, you know, brief the board on this, you've got to do that. And it's very, very easy to fall into a thing, and you know, I hold myself accountable on this as well, because you know, I'm not saying I'm perfect. But did I find time today to go down the corridor and you know, see how my staff are doing? Yeah. So I think that there's the overall pressure that we've got. I hear more colleagues saying, you know, how am I going to find time to do what I need to do to support staff? So I just think that, you know, forcing ourselves, it's hard, you know, you said it really well, Hardev, you know, recognising that this is a really important part of your responsibility as a finance leader, and making sure that you make the time to do it, and to do it well. So, you know, some of my team might be watching on the live stream, so we've just been doing our appraisals in Leeds, and I'm delighted. The finance team have got the best compliance in the whole trust. 98.1% of colleagues have had their appraisal. Whoop, that's great, that's great. I just wonder if I did that survey, and not knocking on anybody, but saying, well, and was it a good appraisal? You know, the most important conversation of the year, was it done well? I think that's a real message for us within the staff survey results that we've got, that yeah, always learning questions score not as well as the other questions. And here we are celebrating, you know, all this learning development we're doing. And let's dig underneath that. And yes, is the appraisal type questions, you know, was your appraisal valuable, that score not very well? So that would be a really good thing to do for us when over the next year, 2 years, working on not only from a compliance perspective, but how do we really support our colleagues in that most important conversation each year about their development, their appraisal, and let's make them really valuable. Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. Hi. Well, I have to say you're a class act up on the pyramid stage. I think it's just great to see you all up there, and thank you for all the work you do. I know you're doing brilliant work, and it's great to be part of this. I was just wondering, just thinking about, I'm a sponsor, as many of us are in the room, on the sponsorship programme, and I know that we do a lot of work on coaching and mentoring programmes as well through the Leadership Academy. But I'm just wondering, when we do the sponsorship programme, we do a lot of work on supporting people through a mentoring approach, through supporting people in the career progression, and it's really good. But there is a role for coaching as well, which is a little bit different. And I just wonder whether we could think about some of that approach as well, because coaching has a very different role. And in some cases, when I'm going through the mentoring and the sponsorship, I think this person actually could do with more coaching. And I'm personally doing coaching because I think I'm undertaking the ILM qualification at the moment, because I think there is a role for us in that space as well. So I just wondered, from what I've seen and learned myself, I could just see the benefit of it if we could look at maybe thinking about space for that. That was just a thought.
Yeah, so I'm a great believer in all types of development, and you're right, coaching, mentoring and sponsorship are three areas that certainly in One NHS Finance, in the Finance Academy, we're keen to explore much more. So I think I would certainly expect most finance leaders to have some function in sponsorship capacity. It's likely there'll also be a mentor as well. But actually coaching doesn't get the same airplay as the other aspects. So I would definitely agree with you on that. So I have a coach, and one of the reasons for that is I've always found that the people who I aspire to talked about their coaches and how they've influenced them. So, but we've never actually gone overtly to say, as a finance leadership community, we should be encouraging coaching as a way of development. But we're certainly working with HFMA on a program of how we get accredited coaches, how we open that up. And I believe under the talent pool and in the first CFO roles, that you do get assigned a coach to help you, support you in your development as well. And that links in with the work we do with HFMA. So we are combining that, but I completely agree that coaching has an important part to play.
And I think you can request a coach through the HFMA One NHS website as well. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Hi, Spencer Prosser from Lewisham and Greenwich. Just thanks to the panel. I thought it was really inspiring, and thank you for your work that you're doing leading this kind of particular space. I think to a degree you're preaching to the converted here, aren't you? The fact that we're all here and participating and signed up, etc. I suppose my question is, how do we reach other members of the finance function that are notoriously difficult to engage and potentially not supporting the more junior folk in the way that maybe they should?
I'm sure we all want to answer that, don't we?
I'll go, yeah. Thanks, Spencer. That's really right. So it's ages ago now, but when I first got involved on the Finance Leadership Council, I was thinking, what could we do in that area? And I noticed we sent lots of emails and all this type of thing. And the brilliant idea occurred to me of, why don't we speak to people, you know? So we came up with we called it the new engagement model, and one of the things around that was just trying to encourage people to speak to people. So what do I mean by that? So anybody in this room can know that the trust down the road haven't started on their accreditation process, yeah? Now, there's 70% of organisations now have got at least level 1 accreditation, yeah? But we can know that, and you will know that, won't you? Yeah. And we go, oh, well, they're a bit backward down there, aren't they? No, they're just not going. What is, you know, have we made a respectful inquiry? Have we rung them up and said, you know, I'll say John, John, oh, you know, we're just doing our accreditation, just wondering, is there anything I can do to help? And then you get a conversation going, and you find, well, it's in Leeds with our improvement method, we call it a mental valley, Oh, well, I've asked my deputy to do it, but he's a bit busy, or something like that, yeah? And have those sort of conversations, and that, definitely the sort of beginning of the expansion that we had in value makers and things like that started with those things. So that's something we can all do, and you just do one thing like that every now and again, and slowly we'll get a really big change, I think. So that's my thoughts on that, yeah.
Yep, so to add to that, and the engagement tool, it was a huge help, wasn't it, particularly with the Value Makers Network too. So I think through the network, what we've heard from people, and the engagement exercise a couple of years ago said the same thing, that people sometimes think this is about doing something, this is about career progression or being involved in this, I'm going to have to take some time away. And we wanted to really make sure that we spoke to people and made sure that they didn't miss out on the opportunities. Because all of this stuff that we've just talked about, it means something different to different people, the whole different branches of what's there. So some people being involved in the network absolutely might be about career progression, because there's networks and there's people to talk to, there's sponsors, there's coaches, there's other people you can learn from, and that might be brilliant to open up opportunities for you to do such a thing. For other people, and I've got so many examples of value makers that I could tell you about, where what was most important to them, somebody who came from the non-NHS world and into a relatively senior role, and almost felt intimidated by the people that were working for them because they didn't get the NHS, they didn't understand it. This network and access to some of these materials gave them the confidence to go and understand a bit more about what they could do with their teams without having to almost feel that they were inferior in that senior role. We've got other people who are just passionate about staff development. They don't want to necessarily go and be the next finance director. They just care about people, and they just care about staff and supporting them. So this, again, all of these resources are available out there. So our big mission, and what huge credits to all of the value makers again in doing this, they go and take these messages that we might sit here and spend an hour talking to people about, but they take them deep into organisations and make sure people know that this is all of those things. There's genuinely something for whatever you want to do in your career, whatever you want to be, whatever you want to just come to work and have a nice time and get through it and go home. There is something out there, and they are the way I think of permeating through the different tiers of all of our organisations and reaching the 14,000 people that we really want to get involved in the network. And we've all got targets, haven't we, in our mind about how we want more of these and more of those, but what we can't do is make it about those targets and signing people up just for the sake of it. You know, it's got to be really meaningful, and people have got to, you know, understand what it means for them.
Yeah, just very briefly, I remember when I first started at Barts, I did get a call from Simon asking me, which, yeah, it had the right effect, let's put it that way. So it worked. But there are lots of things that we're doing. So certainly, as I said, at a regional level, we provide lots of information of which organisations are taking up which type of programs, the diversity of people being put forward, and it raises lots of questions. And we really do want regions to, at the talent board, whatever your forum is that you call it, we want those issues to be discussed. So we don't want to be seen at certainly national level of, you know, thou must do X, Y, and Z. It's much more at a regional level, and potentially I would say encourage at ICB level about how you have those more challenging conversations. But there's also, I'm keen that we have for all finance directors and deputies to have in their job description that this is part of the role and it comes as standard. I'm struggling to see why we wouldn't. And I think I would be trying to get through at the chief exec level to get that put in. But certainly for all the new ones coming in, that's what we would expect to be incorporated into those job descriptions. So hopefully that forces the issue a bit more as well.
Thank you. You got the mic, you got the power.
Thank you very much. Well, yeah, it is working. Hi, I'm Guy Dentith from Dartford and Gravesham Trust. Just wanted to echo the thanks for your presentation, but also for the fantastic work that each of you are clearly doing. My question is around, I'm interested in your views, continuing the theme of career progression. On the NHS is very siloed by profession, where there's only kind of one logical route up for a lot of people, and that's certainly true within finance. I'm keen to understand what could we do more to encourage people from outside of finance to have a logical route into finance, but equally be brave and encourage people within finance to go into different areas? And how can we structure things so that that was much easier than it is at the moment?
Suzanne?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. And we've got some wonderful examples within our organisation at the moment. So I guess starting attracting people in there, and we're doing quite a lot of work at the moment about going and talking about coming into the NHS and it being a vocation, and you know, not dissing PwC and all those wonderful firms, but actually if you want a really fulfilling career in finance, come to the NHS. So we've all been going out and speaking to colleges and schools and universities to say, you know, this is what you can get from this role. But I think equally when you do attract people in, it's giving them that variety, because getting experience in different places is just as valuable. I've just heard from, you know, people today, you know, those different sorts of skills for us to become future finance people. We need a different set of skills if we're going to navigate through some of the challenges that we've got. So encouraging people, and you know, we're in positions of influence to help do that. So how do we allow people to go and get experience, whether it's out there in operations or it's out there in IM&T or it's out there wherever, to go and have that secondment and come back and bring all of that learning back into our organisation. But also be really, you know, open to talking about how great it is in finance too. So we nabbed a trainee, you know, a few years ago now, but nabbed a trainee who'd come in through a healthcare support worker profession, but actually they had such good skills that were transferable. And how do we again make it feasible and open to come in here, you know, that we don't have such a rigid set of criteria that you have to have worked in the NHS, you have to have done it for 10 years, you can only have worked in a provider. It's skills, it's people, it's the values, it's those things that are going to make people a success. So I think, you know, that's within our gift really, to encourage that and go and find those people that can do in or out of finance.
Yeah, and I'll just probably say it is a really good question. I think there is an issue about how we attract talent into the NHS at senior level when we are, I wouldn't say fixated, but we tend to put more reliance on must-have NHS experience, and that actually isn't really true. And we're doing some work in piloting a scheme of working with KPM, or a Big Four firm, and to see, can we just swap people around across the ICB? It's a very loose arrangement at this stage, but it's just trying things out to broaden people out, keep people within the sort of finance community in ICB. But it is about actually recognising that people do also want other experiences, and we've got to be open to actually bringing more people in with different skill sets as well.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd like to say the finance community is a wonderful route, isn't it, for other roles in the NHS, particularly sort of management roles. So we know a number of colleagues, don't we, who have gone on from being finance director to chief executive, and that's fantastic. But in my organisation, now there's a lady who was working for us for a couple of years as a business partner, and she said, "Oh, I'm really interested to go for a general management job." And I was thinking, how do I react about this? And I thought, how I should react is, that's fantastic. You know, it's a loss to us, but it's, you know, it's a gain for that team that she's working with, the NHS. So my other reaction was, will you come and after you've done it for a year, will you come back to the time out and tell the team what it's like? You know, and really, really fantastic. So I think that ability for finance colleagues, as they get to, you know, they're really inside the activities of the organisation, and they can branch out, and that's we should really value and celebrate that, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. There's a lady at the front and a chap there, please.
Thank you. It's Charlotte Henson at East Lancashire Trust. It's a similar theme what I was going to ask, actually. I was going to say, I've had a few accountants who's worked for me in the past, and they've all gone into operational roles and been very successful in operational roles, and they make the best managers. But one of the things when I speak to them, I say, what do you actually miss? And they all say the support network that they had in finance, and they all say that. So I just wondered if there's anything we can do to support our operational colleagues and also educate them at the same time. I don't know if that's on the radar. I know the remit's big enough on its own.
I mean, I think probably a lot of us do that within our own organisations anyway. So I know that we encourage a lot of our operational colleagues to come into finance and tell us about what it really feels like to work in the trust on the front line, so that our teams have an understanding of it. We need to understand what we're doing. You know, that we're in the business of providing healthcare. You know, we're there to support that, so we've got to have an understanding. But we'll take that back out as well, because we've got something great to give. You know, I think it was one of the end of the presentations about, you know, we're problem solvers, aren't we? We're there to help find a way. So giving our teams opportunities to go and, you know, repay that and talk about what we have, I think is just as important. So maybe that's something we need to think about in our programme as well, if some of our work about how we do that a bit more. I mean, we've got wonderful examples, haven't we, of some of our clinicians that are demystifying finance is probably one of our most successful sort of courses or sessions that we run. It's maxed out, isn't it, every time? We've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that will go and listen to that particular session, because we've got clinicians talking about the importance of finance and valuing the finance community for what they do. So maybe we need to develop a bit more of that.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, Hardev said it earlier that Amanda said to you what a great structure we've got. I know there was that messenger review, wasn't there, of NHS leadership, and it was noticed through that the finance function had really great staff development. So we are leading by example in that sense, but we are, you know, it's a really good point. We should make more of that. And try and, you know, it'd be really, there's training schemes and things in there for general managers, but I don't know if there's a network like this. So yeah, that is something we should think about and perhaps do something on.
Okay, I've got a question from online then, another one for Simon. You're popular this afternoon. How do we make sure that organisations are really on board with accreditation and it's not just a tick box exercise?
Ooh. Okay. Well, I'm going to be slightly controversial for a moment, because if you think it's a tick box exercise, don't do it. Just don't do it, please. I mean, I've really pushed back against personally, and the opinions differ, but this sort of, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. Let's write letters and say you've got to do it. Why haven't you done it? Because that just forces you straight down that tick box approach. And then the graph that we saw earlier, if we all did that, you wouldn't notice any difference because it's the way. It's the most important thing about accreditation. What is it? Is it the standards? It's the way you engage your team in doing that accreditation. I said about I've given it to the. I've heard that a lot. It's on my deputy's list, and they haven't got round to it yet. Well, you shouldn't be on the deputy's list. It should be, you should be having an open conversation with the team, encouraging them to look at what accreditation is, and then the team will do it. Yeah. So we just had our level 3 reaccreditation not so long ago, and it was a really engaging process, I think, for the team. And myself as director of finance, I just could look and watch. This is fantastic. And the colleagues who were doing it were from all levels of the the team. So that's my answer. And that's that. The other thing I was saying to spend, we don't. And hopefully, Hardev rang you up. Hopefully, it was a nice call. But if that was when I was ringing around people a few years ago, just to try and encourage at that time. So that's the way we should approach it, through encouragement, and then it will have the genuine effect that it's meant to have. Yeah.
Great answer. Thank you. There's a chap at the back, and then there's a mic, please, on the first 2 tables. Thanks.
Yeah, Steve Washburn from Royal Orthopaedic Hospital, and welcome to Birmingham. If I just take Hardev's analogy that he started with, so if Julian was the headliner this morning, you've got the Legends afternoon slot. But if we walk round the corner to the up-and-coming stage or the alternate stage, what would they be talking about? So if there's one thing each of you would say is the big thing that we were all going to be talking about in 12 months' time or 2 years' time, what would it be?
I'm sorry, I don't know. Right. Right. So in the up-and-coming stage, I want to talk about. We had a really interesting exercise in my team not so long ago with the financial management team, and I'm really, hopefully my financial management team will come in droves to Manchester shortly to look at what you've got going, because we are under such incredible pressure doing all this, work that needs to be done. Yeah. And it was really interesting. We asked them, and I did. The team came up with the what to ask. What does success look like to you? Because accreditation it's great. We've done this. We've done that. It's all great. And there was a big, from what people like me think is success, to what your job in management accountant thinks is success. And they're different, which is really interesting. So things like, I can feel like I'm doing a good job, I've got time to do a good job, was really important. So to them, yeah, rather than we've done a million things and we just scraped through, yeah. So I do think that if we did ask a different group of people, they would have a different answer. And that's the point, isn't it? That's what engagement's all about. If you have that genuine engagement, then as we're going to have in the next conversation, we will find out what colleagues really think is important. So I suppose what I'm saying is they wouldn't just be replicating the challenges that Julian described earlier, because they don't feel like that to them. They will have different challenges about how they're going to get the job done, etc. is my thought. Yeah.
So where I would hope in 12 months' time the conversation is that the 14,000 people that are out there in our finance teams believe that when we talk about the things that we're talking about today, they aren't just warm words, and that we mean this, and we genuinely want to support people. And the only way that they will convince them that is the case is if we back that up with action. So we can't sit here and say we care about our staff and we care about their well-being and it's important to us, but actually we're not thinking through some of the things that we're asking them to do. So I challenge myself on that every day to say, do I really need to ask for that? Because me just asking that question, it may well send a flurry of people going away, really diligently trying to work out the answer to what it is I've asked. And a simple yes or no, we don't know, might have been okay for now. But just thinking that through, because I think if we don't, we will lose people's trust and confidence in this conversation if we don't follow through and behave in a way or act in a way that supports that. So we just, all of us, in whichever organisation we work in, just think about what we're asking our teams to do and whether that's reasonable and whether that's going to be something that they can actually do, because we don't want to lose staff through this. That recruitment and retention piece that you talked about earlier is so essential for us. So I hope that in 12 months' time, when we've listened to what comes back through this 4-week period, that we've actually maintained that and people are feeling positive about the work that we're doing through here and don't think that we failed them by saying it and then doing something different.
Yeah, I think, Steve, great question, and good to see you and be back in Birmingham with you as well. I think if in a few years' time the headline act will probably be Elton Bot, I don't know. But I think there'll be a couple of things I would want us to be pushing for. I'd really want us to be, this room to be more representative of the population we serve, and that's at all characteristics, etc. So I think that would be a big step forward. I think the other bit for me would be that some of the discussions we talk about are more aligned to the systemic problems within the health service. So how does finance integrate with the clinicians on health inequalities? How do we tackle some of those more difficult, longer term preventative issues, and the role of finance being much more aligned as value makers, working with clinicians as well. So those programs that I know Suzanne is really passionate about, how do we make those really work to make the difference? So I think it's the inward looking about, are we representative of the people we serve, and outwardly, how are we actually making that difference for the health of the population?
Thank you. And I'm just going to add another one because I'm up here. And that's about, I think all of the panel have mentioned about going out to schools and colleges and those underrepresented people. So if we can have an almost another stage that's all of those really new to the NHS people that come with a completely different set of skills than we might have. We've got some real diversity of thought, and I think the possibilities are endless if we can harness that.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to give a shout out to Tom Shearer there, and Tom is leading the charge on that, on the insight placement. So certainly we're piloting that piece in London, but if organisations are interested about how we're using that scheme to help leverage more representation, but more also looking at how we encourage those from socially deprived backgrounds, then please speak to Tom. Tom, do you want to give a wave? Because I think he's doing a great one. But yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you. Anybody else got a mic? Okay, I'm going to go to one of the online questions then.
Sorry, Nick's got a
question. Oh, go for it.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you three. You know how much I support what you're doing. It means a lot. So Nick Cashew, I'm the North West Regional Finance Director. I have the privilege of hearing lots of stuff from staff in my region, and you guys are tackling everything that they're saying. And I want to just offer 3 quick observations and maybe a question in between. But from your point of view, Simon, and stuff you've said, the bit about appraisals, it means so much to our staff, and not just doing it to take away the 45 minutes, the hour and a half. An example I wanted to offer was, I remember joining an organisation where I did an appraisal, and the lady that I did an appraisal actually had a PhD in chaos theory. Now, if ever you need it right now, it was that expertise, but I would never, ever have known what that person brought to work. So I'd really encourage what you said around do things, do it well, but get to know your staff more than just what they do in the 9 to 5, because there are some diamonds out there. And we found out during the pandemic as well what people really could do and what they were willing to do. So really support that. Hardev, we talked about this before, and it's really important to me. People talk about how poor, when you don't get a job, the feedback you get. We are rubbish at this, and staff come to me all the time to go, Well, they told me I was above the line, but I didn't get it. That's useless. We need to be better at that. That's about giving someone feedback that they could work with a coach, a mentor, a sponsor, and do something really constructive with. We're all brave enough to take it, but we're not brave enough to give that sort of honest feedback. So my offer would be that's something we need to talk to, and I know you're on board with that and working with that. And Suzanne, really, really last, and it's last because it's so important, living your values, not just laminating them. I can't tell you how many staff see their boss say something on stage and go, that person doesn't do that in real life. And you just get a disillusioned workforce. So 3 quick things, my total support for everything you're doing. I just wanted to offer some observations in that way.
Thank you. So I think that's a really good point to end on. My thanks to the panel. Thanks to everybody who's participated in that discussion. You've now got, I think, 30 minutes for a break, and back here at 3:30, please. And if we can just thank the panel in the normal way.